Though President-elect Trump has said he will move swiftly to implement mass deportations after he takes office.
An incoming crackdown on undocumented immigrants. That vow has left many immigrants frightened and confused. People are expressing their concerns on social media.
Y'all didn't punish Kamala Harris by not voting for her. Y'all punish people like me.
My immigrant mother just called me on the phone innocently asking me if she should start carrying her passport in case they start doing mass deportations.
His newly appointed border czar, Tom Homan, said yesterday the Trump administration will prioritize deporting people who are living in the country illegally and pose a threat to public safety.
Okay, so you know how everyone says the 2016 election was like this huge turning point?
Oh, yeah.
Well, today we're going to zoom in on one specific thing President-elect Trump said that really shook things up for immigrant communities.
Okay.
His whole plan for like immigration enforcement. We've got like news articles, social media posts, even stuff from legal experts.
Wow, a real time capsule.
Yeah, it is. And it kind of shows how this moment is still shaping the whole immigration debate even now.
That's interesting because this wasn't just some boring policy announcement. It felt different, like Trump was changing the whole tone and the way we think about immigration.
Right. You got that feeling too.
Yeah, definitely. When he started talking about deportations and workplace raids, it just created this cloud of uncertainty for so many immigrants. Like nobody knew what was going to happen.
So let's break down the actual plan. What were the main things that jumped out at you?
Well, the biggest thing was that he wanted to act fast.
Okay.
Like right away. Mass deportations were a top priority, especially for anyone they thought was dangerous. Oh, and he also talked about cracking down on businesses that might be using illegal labor or involved in trafficking.
That makes sense.
Yeah. He wanted to do more workplace raids for that.
You mentioned like a shift in tone. Can you explain that a little more? Like, was it really that different from what other presidents had done?
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, immigration enforcement has always been a thing, but the way Trump talked about it was different.
Right.
Like just the words he used and what he focused on.
I see.
It felt like a big change. Plus, he was talking about targeting certain groups, which made people really nervous. It didn't matter what their situation was.
Right.
Everyone was kind of lumped together. It created this sense of urgency that we hadn't really seen before.
Yeah, because like a lot of people were caught off guard. So how did immigrants react to all of this? I know we have some sources that capture some pretty intense emotions from back then.
Yeah. One social media post I remember was from this mom, and she was asking if she should start carrying her passport everywhere, like even to the grocery store.
Wow, serious.
Just in case she got stopped. She was worried about having to prove her citizenship.
That's wild.
It just shows you how scared people were.
Can you imagine? Like, every time you leave your house, you're worried about getting stopped?
Exactly. And it wasn't just undocumented immigrants who felt this way.
Really?
A lot of people with legal status were also worried.
Huh.
They didn't know how these new policies would actually work.
Right.
Or if they would be targeted too.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like all of a sudden the rules of the game changed.
Yeah.
And we also have some legal experts in the mix trying to make sense of it all.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's this immigration lawyer, Jose Osorio. He was warning everyone that there was going to be a lot of confusion.
Oh, that's interesting.
Especially with these workplace raids.
Yeah.
Like, how are they going to figure out who's undocumented?
Right. That's a huge issue.
It's not that simple.
No. Osorio's perspective is so important because he pointed out how hard it would be to actually do all this stuff that Trump was talking about.
Right.
Like identifying and deporting millions of people. It just wasn't realistic. Plus, there was a big risk of mistakes happening.
Totally.
And people getting hurt who shouldn't have.
So it wasn't just the plan itself, it was also how it might play out in reality.
Yeah, it could have caused even more chaos and made things worse for everyone.
That makes sense. And Osorio was giving advice to immigrants saying, like, get your documents ready, prove you have family ties, and show that you're allowed to work here or that you have permission to be in the country.
Wow. So basically he was telling everyone to be prepared for the worst.
Exactly. It was like batten down the hatches because we don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
And then we also saw some pushback from certain states like California.
Oh, right.
They weren't just going to sit back and watch this happen.
Well, California has always been a big supporter of immigrants' rights.
Yeah.
So Governor Newsom called this special legislative session to beef up California's laws that protect immigrants. It was a direct challenge to what Trump was trying to do.
I see.
And then the Attorney General, Rob Bond, took it even further. He said he would fight for these state laws in court if he had to.
Wow, so it was like a showdown.
Yeah.
Federal power versus states' rights.
Exactly. And that whole conflict between state and federal authority, especially when it comes to social issues, that's been a thing in America forever.
You have legal battles, political fights, and of course, all the fear and uncertainty for immigrant communities. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was really interesting.
I'm glad. Until next time.
See you then.